Trejos. Claudia, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Happy to have you. Happy to have you. Excited to have you on the show and talk some boxing. Got a big card. You're going to be commentating for Amazon Prime and PBC. And yeah, just excited to get to it. Hope everything has been well for you, though.
Yes, thank goodness. And I haven't seen you in a while. So, first and foremost, before we go any further, congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
marriage. It was wonderful to see that beautiful union. So, many, many years, many, many blessings.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to keep it together and inspire people not to get divorced out here, you know.
There you
But
go.
uh let's get right into it. I wanted to talk strictly about the card, but I did want to give you an opportunity to educate us on your upbringing. Obviously, we don't really see Latin American women really doing it on your level. You've been on every network from Fox to Showtime. I mean, everywhere. You're everywhere. The Zone. ESPN. You do commentating in English. You do commentating in Spanish. You interview the big names. How'd you get your start? What motivated you to do broadcasting and commentary, and how'd you eventually end in boxing?
Oh, Nestor, that's a $1 million question, but I'm going to make it very, very short. I am a sports fan. I just sports fan. And when I came to the States, I was looking into becoming an MD. And unfortunately, we had some family crisis back home in Colombia. I was born and raised in Colombia. And I had to make an executive decision. At the time, I was working as a grip. I don't know for those who don't know what a grip is that person that carries the cables behind what we call the roving camera, and that's what I did. And then I was given the opportunity to go from that to camera to editing to producing. And as I progressed, one day out of the blue, I was producing, writing, and all I had to do was wait for my talent to show up. And my talent didn't show up. So my boss said, this is sponsored. It's got to go on air, and it's going to go on air now. And you know me, I walk around pretty much like this, no makeup, very short hair. He goes, just slap something on, borrow a jacket, and host it. And I did. Again, it was a 3 minute segment. It was a halftime show during a soccer game. We're talking that's way before even Fox. It was before it became Fox Sports, when it was Prime Sports. And before that, I was a grip for Prime Ticket. So we're talking back in 1990. So fast forward, why do I do boxing? My first and foremost love, the man besides my dad, who was my first boyfriend, quote unquote, when I was a little girl, obviously, like most girls. My second husband and second love was Muhammad Ali, and I had no clue who he was. But we were staying up late with the family, and we were watching this beautiful, gorgeous man, bigger than life, and just moving around. And I fell in love with the sport. By the time I was 8, I was asking for a speed bag as a Christmas gift. I come from a very big family. I'm number 14 out of 17. Out of those were only 4 women, 13 boys. So my older brothers just thought it was kind of funny to
Wait,
have.
wait, wait. 17 siblings?
Yes,
Wow.
I know. It
Big
was fun though.
family. Big family. They must be proud of you.
Um, I don't. Uh, well, they're a lot older than me. I just have 3 younger siblings. My younger siblings do understand what I do. My older siblings, they're old school. So my oldest sibling before me passed away, but the one before that is almost 12 years older than me. And then the oldest is 21 years older than me. So by the time I start doing TV, in their minds, it's like, you were going to be a doctor. What do you mean you're going to work on TV? What is that? They don't understand. They literally think, and it's true, Nestor, you and I know that we love what we do. So for us, it's not work. They're used to you grind and you go from 9 to 5. We grind, but we love the grind. And we're 24/7 on. We're on all the time because there's always something going. They don't understand that. So are they proud? They're only happy that they don't have to like keep a track of me. They don't. I'm independent since I was 16, so they're okay with that. But do they really understand? No, not really. But I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Well, That's still an impressive story. I mean, to have so many siblings, and you're the one on television doing the big thing, interviewing all. I'm sure if you have any males in that in your family, they're impressed with all the boxers that you've interviewed. But let's get into it because you're not just someone that is a fill-in. You actually know boxing. So let's get with the main event. Murtazaliev not taken on, but given a shot to Tszyu. You have to keep it neutral, right? Because you're going to be commentating, or you're allowed to pick or give your opinion. How's that work?
Um, I don't think in particular. Um, there's certain networks that would suggest for you not to give your opinion. You can give your take in terms of break it down. I personally don't like to give predictions because, like it or not, I believe that it predisposes you once you become a commentator. That's my belief. Very much, very particular. It's my experience. Now, can I break it down for you? And in this case, remember, it's Tszyu taking the opportunity against Bakhram. And I think it's a very even matched fight. Uh, and of course, in think about Tim Tszyu's responsibility right now. He's got his dad with him now in Orlando, and they haven't spoken in a long time. So he has his dad. He's a two-time. He's a unified, the only undisputed champion in Australia. So he's carrying that weight on him, regardless. I think this is an extraordinary fight, and of course, Bakhram is no joke. We already know his knockout percentage is up to past 70%. So we're looking at if people are looking for haymakers and high probabilities of this fight finishing before the final bell, this is one of them.
So this is the first time that the PBC goes to the Caribbean Royale, which is obviously in Orlando, Florida. It's a beautiful resort, about 32 acres. I love it. I've been begging for the boxing guys to bring a big fight. I don't think this is a big fight because it's two guys. Like, maybe if Tszyu was fighting Lubin, who's from Orlando. But why do you think they put two foreigners in Orlando?
Well, I don't think they even thought of two foreigners. They just thought, this is the IBF title. So they see this obviously as a great opportunity for Tim. And Erickson Lubin right now, he took again a sidestep due to his hand injury, and he's not available right now. But let me tell you, I had the opportunity to speak to Tim, and he's looking for that fight. He's looking for the Virgil Ortiz fight. That would have been also a very attractive fight for the Hispanic market. But in general, I think these two, forgetting about just putting the nationality on the side, just in terms of style, it is very attractive for the boxing fans and the non-boxing fans, because there's a lot of stories in these two gentlemen, like stories that can appeal way past,
Give
the
me
X's and O's of boxing.
Can you give us some background on Bakhram? Because I mean, I'm a hardcore, but I never watched Murtazaliev. He took so much step aside money, it kind of turned me off. He was supposed to have an opportunity versus Jamel Charlo years ago. That never happened. So he put himself in that Victor Postal situation where Victor took step-aside money from Danny Garcia for 3 fights, and I was turned off by that. I want guys who go to the rankings and get to number 1 to actually fight the champion versus taking a check and fighting on the champion's undercard to let the champion do something greater. But, yeah, what is his story? Why are you so interested in him?
Do you remember his fight back in April against Koke?
Yes, that's where he won the vacant title.
Exactly. So, do you know anything about Ramadan?
You mean the Muslim religion?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, Ramadan,
yes. Yeah.
the fasting
Yeah, the
period.
fasting and the period, yes.
Exactly. So, let's put things in perspective. Koke is no joke. Strong fighter, and obviously he had already, and just following along with what you just said, we're talking about a gentleman that made over $1 million in 4 fights that he didn't even fight. I mean, let's be honest here. Putting boxing aside, I totally get what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from. Now I'm going to give you the other side of the coin. This is a gentleman that struggled. He's moved around. He comes from Chechnya. He had to move to somewhere else and ended up in Russia. Now here's in the States. This is a man that has struggled. And then somebody saying, listen, you don't need to fight. Here's some money. Just step aside. For whatever reason. Was it because it was a better business deal in terms of attraction, in terms of, fan favorite, whatever the reason is. We're not going to delve into that. But then he comes around April and he's facing this guy. He goes all the way to Germany to go for that title on the 27th day of Ramadan. Let's put this in perspective. It's 27 days worth of fasting, working out at weird hours because they can't really do much once the sun comes up and once the sun comes down. That's the only time that they can do something, before the sun comes up and after the sun goes down. So sparring is critical, obviously, and challenging, because now you're not even following what we call the parallel fighting. You can't even follow the parallel procedure of the fight. Fast forward, he goes to Germany. He takes that fight and he does it with determination. There was no question about his win, obviously. And he was depleted mentally, physically, emotionally, because he had to. But he was committed. On the 27th day of Ramadan, he takes that win. I give him all the credit, boxing-wise, strength and conditioning-wise, mental-wise. Now, fast forward. I understand. He comes here to the States. He's going to be fighting somebody that comes from a massive, massive fight against Fundora. We all saw that. I mean, let's talk about grit. Let's talk about just cojones. Pure cojones. And he took it all the way to the last belt despite the gash. And let me tell you, Nestor, I don't know if you got a chance to see the gash. So I'm doing the running around. You've seen me from corner to corner, and I get a chance to take a glimpse at that gash. By all means, it was not only horrendous, it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. So his cut man takes the ice off, and it was almost like a volcano of blood coming out of that cut. Apparently, it hit a particular vein, and there was no way to stop it. We're not going to get into the details of how to stop that because I'm not a cut man, but it was nasty. And he still took it to the last belt. Could you imagine what he could do without that cut? Tim is scary. And Bakhram is scary. We're talking about two guys that are really looking forward to banging. And going back to Bakhram, he understands that people could be turned off because of the choices that not just him, but him and his team took. But he's willing. This is his opportunity to show his audience and really look forward to being embraced as somebody that is in the elite of this division. And this division is not only wide, but it's deep, very deep. And he's still in the top 5 of every single organism.
No, for sure. For sure. I mean, we have, obviously, this show takes callers from the fans. So we have a certain individual that has been calling in for months now, letting us know that not only that Bakhram is a serious player, but that he's a big puncher. And that we will be surprised in this fight. I'm not sure he's picking for the upset, but he's certainly been keeping us, reminding us of his power. What do you think of the co-main event?
I'm glad you asked. I am so glad you asked. I was waiting for that. Let's talk about Joannis Tedes. Let's talk about this kid. Let's not forget he's only 24. He's in his professional career. He's 8-0, 6 knockouts. But, there's fighters and then there's fighters. I mean, there's those very focused, like flat-footed forward brawlers, and then there's the beautiful style, Bivol style, and you know what happened with Beterbiev, but we'll talk about that some other time. But there's that beautiful footwork and slick and nice lateral movements. Well, Joannis is a combination of that. He can actually sit in his punches, despite being very defensive because he comes from the old school Cuban boxing, but he's got that snap and he's got that beautiful jab that is like swift, like a whip. And he's so excited. And just the opportunity to be on this platform, he's relishing every second. You know what he says to me? This is hilarious. He goes, well, I'm glad I'm coming first because now people are going to know that I am the best and I deserve to be in that platform. So in his mind, he's not just fighting Johan Gonzalez, which, by the way, is called Manotas because his hands are ginormous. He says, that's fine, I can deal with it, but I want people to see that I belong in the elite of 154 pounds. And this kid he has everything going against him. He just came here to the States not too long ago. His whole family is back in Cuba. He had to have a lot of work. He had to go through 4 different countries to come here. So he's really laying it all on the line for this fight. And you and I know that sometimes all the intangibles are what really make those are the factors that make the differences in fights.
Absolutely. No, I was live at his last fight with I think Jackson, and he was impressive. I thought he suffered an injury to the hand. Were we able to confirm that? Did he have an injury after that fight in April?
He no, he it was not broken. It was definitely hurt, and that's why he was out for a little bit. I think this is the longest period that he's
Yeah,
been in
6 months. 6 months.
exactly.
And
And think about
Karivi, I mean, BoxLab has been doing a great job keeping him active. That's why I thought maybe the injury was real.
yeah, the injury was real, but it wasn't a fracture, which is a world of difference. Yeah, the guy hits like a mule. He hits like a mule, and for 154, if you think about it, he's kind of a small guy because he's only 5'10", but his reach is 74 inches. So let's put that in perspective. And that jab is beautiful. It's rangy, but when it comes with power, and he definitely did a number on Jackson. We all saw that. We were, as a matter of fact, I think you and I were there for that fight in
Yeah,
April.
yeah. Yeah, we were there.
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to Denier Peru and see what you thought of him. I see that Bob Santos and BoxLab are really pushing him. I feel like we can see him potentially in the top 10 maybe by the end of 2025, if not the middle of 2025, because he's just getting so active. It's like he's fighting every month.
Yes. I don't think only Box Lab is into it. I think the boxing world is again very excited about having him. And you just said something very important. The way he's being moved is key because though they see the talent and the ability to progress quickly, they're also allowing him to settle in. And that's a big difference for any type of fighter because, sometimes the talent is there, but the maturity, both physically and mentally, is not there. So you find yourself in anxious mode once you walk into the ring. And you're only as good as your opponent allows you to be. And perhaps the level of opponent in terms of quality, conditioning, boxing skills has been just about right to test them, but not to make them sink. Am I making any sense?
No, absolutely. I feel like this is a tricky fight for him in the sense that the matchmaking is interesting, right? Like this guy has been in the ring with Richard Torres, and Torres is known for his explosive power and got him out of there in one. So now, that's just how my mind works. Now I'm forced to see, is Peru going to do as good as Torres? Does he have the power that Torres has? Can he handle the assignment the way that Torres did? It's like a natural barometer now due to, Richard Torres having already faced Jake Jr., excuse me.
Let's talk about Richard Torres real quick. He's one of those guys that could be easily underestimated because maybe even just his looks. But the man has discipline. I mean, there's a reason why. Look at his amateur career. So, one of the conversations I had once with somebody like Julio Cesar Chavez, who's a very powerful 140 that actually translated into 147 and never even made it to 147. He says, you're born with the power. Richard Torres has the power. I don't think we've had the opportunity to actually see him full blossom. He's held back a little bit. And I think it has more to do, and I think, I could be wrong, it has a lot to do with his mental aspect. Traditionally, Cuban fighters, for whatever reason, they hold back. When we talk about the Yuriorkis Gamboa, not all the Cuban fighters are of that mentality. When we look at Anerislandy Lara, we know he can crack, but for some reason he holds back. And I think that's one of the matters that we have with a lot of the Cuban fighters, especially the big fighters. Another exception to the rule would be King Kong Ortiz, but for some reason they just hold back. I want to see him just go full throttle, or what I think is full throttle. I could be totally wrong because I don't know what's going on in his mind. That's what I see. There's always that hesitation and pulling back. So Richard Torres is the real thing. Is the real thing. He's no joke
Yeah, and Richard Torres certainly doesn't hold back. But,
at all.
Peru, they're building him up as the fear, right? And he is getting the knockout. So, we'll hopefully he can live up to that nickname. But Gary Antonio Russell is back. He is the brother of a big family of Russells with boxing pedigree and all known in the sport. He is coming off of a loss. This seems more like a tune-up. But where do you think Gary Antoine Russell fits in the landscape in his division at now?
I have not had a chance to see a lot of him. But what I've seen, basically highlights, not for any reason, but just time. Um, this is a gentleman that obviously it needs to be allowed to evolve, and we need to see that talent progress to higher caliber of opponents. Again, I haven't had a chance to see him fight. I've only seen the highlights, so I'm limited in my opinion. I have to admit that.
For sure. Well, let me get your opinion on a couple other boxing issues. Who do you think won the Bivol Beterbiev fight?
Oh, $1 million question. That's a fight that honestly could have gone to either way, but I love damage. I
Oh,
usually, let's go back by the parameters that we use in boxing: ring generalship, assertive aggression, and obviously command of the ring. Period. And establishing the rhythm. That could have gone either way, but in terms of effective aggression, Beterbiev was no doubt the guy that did more damage. The timing, Bivol could have gone back and forth, and for Beterbiev could have gone back and forth. So it was a beautiful combination of a banger that can box and a boxer that could bang. I know that sounds the same, but it's not. So I know Bivol in those middle rounds. I think he got kind of lost and allowed Beterbiev to just eat him up because of
yeah.
his power. Beterbiev is an animal. And you know what we proved once again? The age is just a number. A lot of people were giving a lot of credit to Bivol because of obviously his youth and his talent. Beautiful boxing skills, the pure boxing skills. We all seen what he's done, especially with somebody like Canelo, who's a natural banger. But Beterbiev got his timing down. Beterbiev did a lot of damage. Did you see Bivol's face at the end of that fight?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen it like that, ever. So in my book, by a hair, Beterbiev took that win. It could have gone, yeah, again, but it's what I like. It's my perspective. I like damage. I look for damage, especially for those rounds that could have gone either way. I want to see who damaged whom more. I know it's basic boxing. I know. But once all the little boxes are covered, in terms of generalship, in terms of timing, in terms of rhythm, then I go for, okay, who did more damage?
Understandable. Since that fight, it feels like people are believing that Canelo has a better shot at Beterbiev than he does at a rematch with Bivol because of styles. They're saying that Beterbiev is a older version of Gennady Golovkin, and Canelo did so well in the second fight.
Look at my face.
So Canelo doesn't beat Beterbiev in your opinion?
I got to really think about this.
I mean, Canelo's 34, but he does have 489 rounds boxed. But
It doesn't.
he's 6 years younger than Beterbiev. This will be his third time at 75. He's also, you got to consider, he's also now watched the man that beat him last 12 with the guy that they said was a monster. So, yes, you've seen damage, but not the normal damage we're used to. He didn't even score a knockdown. We're used to watching him
No.
knock people out.
Wait. Stop. Stop. We're not talking about just Pepito Perez. We're talking, stop. We're talking about Bivol. This is no, I mean, he was in my top 10 pound per pound. He's still in my top 10 pound for pound. So let's not compare apples with pears in terms of quality. No, because Bivol is Bivol. And yet, stylistically, it's a better match. I agree because they're both bangers, naturally bangers. Now, see, we didn't need to see much of Beterbiev's defense. And we know Canelo's defense is like one of the best, hands down. It would be a this would be a match in terms of I can't even compare Beterbiev to Gennady Golovkin because Beterbiev can move. His lateral movement is amazing. Gennady doesn't have that. Didn't have that. You know what? I'm going to give you an example. Daniel Jacobs versus Gennady Golovkin. Who won that fight? In our
Golovkin.
books.
Golovkin.
In our books? In
Yeah,
my book?
I don't think that Daniel won that fight. I mean, he got knocked down in that fight, and he wasn't really. He was on the back foot more than I would have liked.
Yeah. Still, then we agree to disagree. I saw Daniel Jacobs bring out the best of his boxing, perhaps one of the best performances, because he boxed his life out. He boxed him. And Gennady felt it. Gennady felt it because he gassed out. He gassed out. Now, again, let's go back. When we're looking at that Gennady Golovkin, that gassed out, that couldn't move, I cannot compare that to Beterbiev. I cannot. Because
Understand.
Beterbiev, his strength and conditioning is like optimal at 40. I'm pretty sure at 41, 42, because his work ethic is amazing. So I agree with the fact that it's going to be an even match, but it could be an extraordinary fight or it could be a very boring fight. And I'm going to tell you why. If they both decide to bring this fight to the middle of the ring, that would be fantastic. What we're waiting for is a knockdown and perhaps even a knockout. And I've never seen Canelo go down. So moving right along. Or it could be one of respect for each other's punch. So it's going to be a fight at a distance of two bangers that are not used to boxing. So it's going to be a walk around, walk around, walk around. It could be one of the two. So, and knowing the hubris behind Canelo, he's going to go look for the fight. He's going to go look for he's going to be the aggressor. If Beterbiev decides to just stay behind. Because you got to respect Canelo's punching power. Even though he's a natural 168, and perhaps at 175 he was not as effective, but let's not forget what he did to Kovalev. And guess what? No matter how old or how ill or how whatever, Kovalev is Kovalev. You never lose your power, like I just explained to you when I spoke to Julio Cesar Chavez, and I've seen it over and over again. Ask Bernard Hopkins, for God's sakes. Kovalev can hit like a mule, and Canelo took it and knocked the heck out of him. So this could be a banger or very boring. One of the two.
And you think Canelo can last 12 rounds with Beterbiev's power?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Devin and Ryan, what's your stance? It seems like Devin has become the villain. The public has turned their back on him. He was cheated in the fight, but people call into this show daily and say how he was beat, how, he's going to the quote-unquote police. He's suing. He needs to get over it. They need to move on. What's your stance on Devin and Ryan and the fiasco with the PEDs and the fight being overturned?
What a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a real tragedy because the fight was the fight that was the fight. Ryan took the best part of it, and I'm just gonna stay at the X's and O's. Ryan controlled that fight from the first bell to the last bell until it was stopped. Fast forward, he tested positive. Nestor, you and I have been around this game for a long time. We've seen things like this happen on a regular basis. You've seen fighters test positive on a regular basis. Where do I stop? Oscar de la Hoya, Fernando Vargas, Mosley. Where do you want me to stop? And they've lost two, and they've won two. And, there's a point where you just got to let it go. The result was overturned. The paper says it's a non-contest. Let it go. For whatever reason, which I'm still trying to understand why they're taking this to this extent. I know Mr. Haney we're friendly. I just don't comprehend all the side noise. So
Let
the
me ask you a
result,
question. Let me ask you a question to see if this gets you to what you're missing. You said you have Bivol on the pound for pound list.
yes,
Before the Ryan Garcia fight, was Devin Haney not on your pound for pound list?
yeah, he was in the bottom 10.
And he was an undisputed champion, 2 division champion because he had just beat Regis. Is he on your pound for pound list now? And
No,
that's why he's suing because
so
you took him off a list without a loss. You
wait,
devalued him without a loss. Not just you on the pound for pound list, but Top Rank offered him $1.7 million without a loss. Eddie Hearn said, take a $1 million tune-up without a loss. So his value has been damaged because Ryan tested positive, and that people can't unsee what they saw.
and that goes to the fight too.
Yeah, that goes to the fight because we seen the fight, but it just got turned over. But we seen the fight. We can't unsee it.
Exactly.
And that devalues him because regardless that they overturned it and Ryan tested positive, Claudia still says, Ryan controlled that fight. You got to get off my list. And so does numerous other publications. The Ring put him back on, but not everyone.
Does it really need to get to that level? I mean, if you're so confident on your skills, and again, my position is obviously there's a 6 degree separation because obviously I'm not feeling that $1 million, $2 million difference between purses. It's not me feeling it. But the truth of the matter is, this is not the first time that this happens in the history of boxing in general. This is not the first time, and it's, I hate to say it, but it's the nature of the beast. So sometimes you got to take one step back to take 5 steps forward. But to go to the, I I just cannot understand to take it to that level when you already have the no contest. Then, I mean, $1 million is a good payday for a tuna. Ask 80% of the fighters in anybody's list if they're willing to take a tune-up fight for $1 million. Again,
No,
it's
again,
easy for,
you and I are gonna say yes, but think about it. Shakur Stevenson is getting $3 million for his last 2 tune-ups, and he wasn't undisputed. So, again, it comes down to market value. You guys ruined my market value.
well, then gain it back. Gain it back.
So that's the thing. And that's why I said that the public is turning their back on him because look how you feel. You feel like 90% of the public, but Deontay Wilder sued. Not once, but twice. He sued Alexander Povetkin for PEDs. Then after he sued and won, Alexander went and tested 7 months later for the same PED that Ryan tested positive for, Austrian. Then Wilder sued Fury for his 3rd fight, and he was made a hero. No one said he called the cops. No one said he was less than a man. No, they said, look, Wilder wants the rematch so bad, he's suing to get Fury in the ring. Wilder went all the way to the UK and Povetkin tested positive. That's why he's suing, because he spent money on training camp. Like, they defended Wilder, but they're kicking Haney to the street. I don't get what's the difference.
Very good point. I think the matter of the suit is a different matter in terms of I don't know the details of the lawsuit for
No, Wilder got awarded $5 million. Now, obviously, Povetkin's promoter did they wanted to appeal and things like that, but Lou DiBella and Deontay Wilder were awarded about $5 million.
Yeah, I didn't know those details. I don't know. Unfortunately, it's a matter of perception. At this point in time, I think the fact that the result was overturned, and I can't really explain. It's more of a feeling. It's more of a, perhaps it has more to do with Ryan and what he brings to the public and the attention that he gets more than what Haney does or doesn't do. Am I making any sense? Perhaps it's more of a, oh, poor Ryan Garcia. There's this untold story about Ryan Garcia that we're waiting for it to fall. It's almost like a pobrecito feeling. Like, he's going through all this turmoil, the whole mental issue. I'm not saying that's the explanation, or I'm not justifying. I'm just trying to find the reason as to why we have a different feeling with Devin. I
So
It's almost like
I'll give you what the people say because they call in, and we'll cut it because I got two more for you. So the people believe that he is being turned on because they don't like Bill, because Bill is very talkative, and Bill says, Devin's the quiet one, but Bill does the talking for him. Even for that fight week, Bill said, "I'm sending my son in there to kill you." So a lot of people took it backwards, like you wanted Devin to kill him. Now Devin is the one that got destroyed, and now you're crying about PEDs. That's how the people are taking it when they call in here daily. But you know what? We stood on that long enough. Let me move on to Bud versus Canelo, something that Turkey Al-Sheikh wants, something that a lot of Terrence Bud Crawford fans want. But it doesn't seem like Canelo's interested in that. I know you speak to him a lot. I don't know if you have inside information, but if not, do you think it will happen?
Well, before we go into that real quick, again, Bill Haney is no different from Angel Garcia, from Robert Guerrero, the Ghost Guerrero's
Teofimo
dad.
Lopez Sr.
Exactly. So really, I think Bill is a very personable guy, and he does his job as the man that is keeping his son's best interest. So I have absolutely no criticism for Bill. I admire what he's doing. And does the Boxing Society hold this against Devin Haney? I got news for you. We've held so many things against so many fighters. You know what our memory span is? Zero. By next month, we're all gonna forget. So moving right along. Bud Crawford, Canelo Alvarez. You know what Canelo said to me? If the money's right, it's gonna happen. And I'm gonna tell you, if even though I know, I'm pretty sure that there's been like a back and forth between His Highness and Canelo. There's been a back and forth. Uh, Money talks. That's all I'm saying. And I know Bud would love it. I know Canelo would love it because of the challenge that Bud brings. Now, in terms of size, I a lot of people say, "Well, Bud is just too small." Canelo's a very small 168. What are you talking about? So, it when the money is right, the fight will happen. I'm telling you right now. I heard it from his mouth.
So if you get to interview him or speak to him, I know that he had an issue with the Jermell Charlo fight and people not giving him credit. Does the money eliminate that thought from his mind when it comes to Crawford? Now, you could wait to ask him that, but give me your opinion on that, right? Because in interviews, he's like, oh, well, they always say, the Charlos always say they wanted to fight. I fight him, and now he's too small. And he's like, I'm small. That's when he said, yo soy chico, So it's like, it's always a rock and a hard place for Canelo.
Yes, and that has been his lifetime story. Didn't matter who he faced; it was either too old, too small, too young, too green, too. So at this point in time, he really doesn't care. He really doesn't care. Like, he was willing to go up to heavyweights just to make sure that he could. He's always looking for the new challenge, and he likes Bud. He likes his boxing style. As a matter of fact, in his own list of pound per pound, he has Bud Crawford up there. Of course, he has himself as number one, which it's his list. Um, but I really think that at this point in time, Canelo doesn't need, in my book, anything else to prove. He's proven everything. He's fought from 150, 147, 154, 160, 168, and 175. He's been successful in all those divisions except 147, where he was just too depleted to make that weight. So if he is now looking for a risk, what better opportunity than to do it against somebody who's so highly recognized and respected for his boxing skills, for his personality, for his business sense? Because he keeps that in mind whenever he goes into the ring. Do I respect this man? He does that. He does his homework. And Eddie is very particular about his fight plan based on not just the X's and O's, but the mentality behind the fighters. He studies these gentlemen. So is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Absolutely. And I believe Riyadh season might have that fight coming a lot sooner than later.
Yeah, there've been heavy rumors for February, which would be good for us, because Bud Crawford, I don't want him to go another year without fighting. He's the older fighter too. He's 36, but he has less rounds boxed than Canelo, so he could be slightly more youthful. Do you
Oh,
still
and
have?
before I go further, the whole Charlo situation, I think Canelo was very upset because he was expecting Charlo to come up and rise to the occasion. He also knew that he was inactive for a long time, so he was expecting more of a. He loves challenges, so he was expecting Charlo to show up, and he didn't. That's his conundrum about that fight.
Do you have time for more?
Of course, I'm
Okay.
here for you. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Well,
It's a pleasure
earlier,
to talk to you.
thank you. Earlier, you spoke about Cubans and holding back.
Yeah.
We've heard that David Benavidez, the Mexican monster, should be taking on David Morell. That fight is allegedly done for January 25th. We're just waiting on location and venue. Will Morell hold back? I thought he lost. I'm sorry. I was there. No, I
Oh
wasn't there.
yeah.
I wasn't there. But I watched the fight with Hot Rod. I wasn't impressed. He telegraphed every single right hook. I think that David should get the win fairly easier than people believe. But what's your thoughts on David versus David?
Well, I had the opportunity to speak to Morel, and he said that he was not in his best when he walked into this fight. There were a lot of issues, and he had been out for a long time, and there was a lot of ring rust. Explanations that would come up as excuses, probably. The one thing I can tell you is, if he does get to fight Benavidez in January, that's not going to be the issue. I understand his camp is nice and tight. He was already working towards this fight before it was announced. Uh, David Morell is a completely different generation of Cuban fighters. It's the same as the Roes y Ramirez. It's a completely, they see professional boxing very different from the Laras, the Rigondeaos, from back in Olympics of 2000, 2004, that actually 96 all the way to 2004. Those fighters from the old Cuban school of boxing that made the transition to professional boxing had a harder time because it was more of a defensive style of boxing. This new generation that came after 2016 and 2020, they are fine tuned into doing that transition into the pros because now they've been exposed into Russia, they've gone to Ukraine, to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, so they have more of a professional flat-footed, or they can transition into the flat foot. That is Morell. Morell can actually sit into his punches. He's a big guy for this division. I mean, his back is humongous. And when he rehydrates, we're talking about 15, 20 pounds at least when he walks into the ring. So this is a big guy, a very happy-go-lucky type style of fighting. And I'm looking forward to it because Benavidez can actually bang. He's a typical Mexican fighter. So if we get the opportunity to see this fight in January, I'm looking forward to a lot of punches, haymakers. And this fight, deep down in my heart, I don't think it's going to go to the final bell.
All right. So I got a couple of questions from the people. Rue in the 504, which is New Orleans, he says, "What's your fondest memory of the Boxeo Telemundo days?"
Oh my God. Can you believe that in Boxeo Telemundo I had the opportunity to see so many young men rise to the occasion, among them Canelo. Canelo came up through Boxeo Telemundo. And working with such a great team, and I literally like sharpened my interviewing abilities and my commentating abilities. But I think the Sandersayas of this world, I'm giving you the two sides of the spectrum. When I first started and when we closed Boxeo Telemundo. When I first started, it was Canelo. We did most of his fights back in Indio. And it was to see young men rise to the occasion and go up the ranks and now see them perform at a professional level, um, you can see that cycle. And I am so blessed to be able to talk about this now. But I think those are my fondest memories. And now I got the opportunity to see the Sandersayas come up, and now I see him, being recognized for his talent and being part of big shows at Madison Square Garden and celebrating Puerto Rican pride. I mean, it does not get any better than that.
We got Toledo Treese in Ohio. Do you prefer interviewing fighters or commentating fights? And what are your thoughts on MVP Promotions possibly dealing with Turkey Al-Sheikh like everyone else?
I think both positions, reporting, getting up in the ring, and doing the post fights is very. It's like very quick, and you got to be on your toes, and you got to be in your game. And the reason why I can do that is because I commentate the fights. So one prepares me for the other. Once I do like the long form, like those long interviews that Nestor was talking about, it's a completely different feel, and I love it because I get the opportunity not just for me to get to know the fighter, but it also allows me to show the public why we have to watch these people, because we get a chance to see the heart, the soul, the personalities. Those are things that we don't get a chance to see during fights. And the second part of that question was about MVP. You
Yes.
know,
Dealing with
um,
Turkey Al-Sheikh.
I'm not sure. I don't delve into that part of the business. I don't know. I understand that Turkey, I understand his plans. I mean, he's made them very clear that he wants to take over boxing and make it a big league. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a time where he's going to come and check out whatever stable MVP has. And by the way, if you guys do get a chance, please join us on MVP, because they have a contender series and they have a prospect series. And again, going back to my Telemundo days, this is exactly what boxing used to be when we were on regular TV. I don't know if you remember this. We had a chance to see all this new talent coming up, and then we had the pay-per-views. This is exactly what MVP is doing. So if Turkey Al-Sheikh wants to really control boxing, they need to find promoters that are willing to invest money and time and showtime and airtime on the up and coming talent. So
Development is so important. That's why
development,
I love what
exactly.
Pro Box is doing. I love Pro
Yes,
Box TV, and I hope they continue to thrive because they're giving, people a chance to develop, but in very exciting fights. They put their guys tough.
yes, yes. Agreed, 100%. So again, do you agree with me though, Nestor? I mean, if Turkey Al-Sheikh really, His Highness wants to control boxing,
Yeah,
he's got to
no,
he's got to look at the stables. He's
for
got to.
sure, for sure. And he's got to focus more on just the UK. His cards are too UK based. I mean,
Wait. Hold on. November 16th, Latino night. Guess what? Gilberto Ramirez is going to be fighting.
finally, after how many Turkey Al-Sheikh UK based cards? We've
A ver,
seen.
papo. A ver. So, lloras cuando te la meten, grita cuando te la sacan. A ver.
Yeah, no, I'm always. My audience knows I always complain. I want it perfect because it's like it's not that hard. These fighters want to fight. We got some
Yeah.
fighters that have been out for a year, 18 months. Look at Danny Garcia. He just fought after being out for 2 years.
Wait, stop.
Inactivity has been killing these fighters.
Yeah, but Danny Garcia was out for many other reasons, not necessarily opportunities. Because I know for a fact that PBC had offered him opportunities, but he was going through his own thing. He finally became a dad again, and he was resolving things that a lot of times. Let's not forget, Danny has been fighting since he was like yay high.
No,
And
no,
mind
I
you,
had him on the show. He said he went through some mental health issues. He
yes.
suffered some things for sure. Everyone is human for sure.
And then he decides, and then for all intents and purposes, remember his best time was at 140 and 147. Then he decides to go 160, which I agree. I agree. He needed time. He doesn't want to cut weight all the way into 147. I agree. But you don't take Lara. That's a monster. Anyway, that's a completely different conversation.
Well, talking about completely different, we got Octo that says, "Greetings, Claudia. What's your favorite music artist? And give us one movie we should watch."
Oof. So I'm a salsera. Uh, And I
So,
come from old school salsa, so it's like Gilberto Santa Rosa, and even before that Celia Cruz, and before that La Fania. So of course I'm gonna be a Mark Anthony fan. So that pretty much settles that. Um, and what was the second part of the question?
one movie we should watch.
Raging Bull.
Raging Bull. Oh my God, I hate that movie.
Don't hate it. Why are you hating?
Black
Yeah, I
and
don't like it
white.
either.
Black and white, Claudia. Why?
Because I'm old. I'm classic.
No.
I'm a 1967, a 1969, for God's sakes. So when we're talking about me growing up and loving boxing, that just pulled me in 100%. Now, if we're going to go into a completely different genre, Pulp Fiction is one of my favorites because I have ADHD. So, the fact that it kept going from one story to the next to the next, it kept me entertained. So that's my other favorite movie.
We have D Mo. No question, just letting you know we enjoy the work you do. Fight night. My whole family enjoys your commentary.
Thank you. Thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you.
I have Jerry who says, Hola Claudio, feliz dia. Is Jerry Soriano, your lender for life, currently in Villa de Livia, Colombia. I think
Hi.
I think you are vastly underrated as a boxing correspondent. Have you or are you venturing into other arenas of entertainment? And also, where did you learn about boxing, get your start? Gracias. I think you gave us that earlier, but
Yeah.
not where you learned about it. You did give us
You know,
how you started, but not learned.
I learned with my brother because he used to beat the crap out of me and make fun of me. So it was either you beat or get beaten. That's simple. And
Wow.
and just watching a lot of boxing, and listening to great commentators. And oddly enough, nobody in my family was into boxing. They were borrachos, pendencieros, and mujeriegos. That's all they did. They fought, they drank, and they had women all over the place. So it wasn't even like they taught me, oh, this is a jab, uppercut, this is a cross, this is a straight. No, it was okay. When you stand like this, you have to throw that. That was it. And I started fighting when I was very young, and I used to get into a lot of trouble. So I decided to make it somewhat organized in my own head, and then one thing led to another. And I'm also a motivational speaker, and I love that part of my life, to be able to talk to not just corporate, but minorities in general, because I think we're underrepresented across the table, no matter what. And in my very humble position, I've learned certain tools that have given me the opportunity to stay in this business for over 30 years. So it's not about making it; it's the progress. And once I can relay that information to anybody that's willing to listen, I'm more than blessed.
I have Tip Bellis that says your top 3 or 5 favorite movies.
Oh, well, we already touched base on two. Uh, Any Given Sunday.
Okay.
That would be three. My goodness, I have to think hard for this.
Well,
I
that's 3. That's 3. If you want to come back to it, we can. I
Yeah.
got a Lil Zooted that says, hello, Claudia. Lil Zooted from Southwest Africa, Nimbia, Kenmen Soup, in way of East Mexican tribe.
Wow.
Salute. How would Canelo fare up against a brick wall like Arthur Beterbiev? Break it down.
Oh,
You already broke it down. These questions were he asked this 16 hours, but I don't know if you want to retouch on Canelo Beterbiev.
very quick. It's gonna be one of the two fights that we spoke before. It's either gonna be a banger right smack in the middle of the ring, where two very heavy hitters can actually meet. And if you look at the dimensions, they're very similar. The only big difference really is the age, but other than that, not much more. um but in terms of power and knockout percentage, they're very similar. So it's either going to be a knockout fest, or it's going to be a very distant, boring fight because of the respect for each other's power.
Marvelous from Texas says, hey, Claudia, thanks for your time. Who was your favorite fighter growing up, and who are your top 5 all-time fighters?
Good question.
Very good question. So, the one man that I fell in love with as I was growing up was Muhammad Ali, and then I got a chance to see somebody like Sugar Ray Leonard, and through Sugar Ray Leonard, I started watching Sugar Ray Robinson, of course, and Emil Griffin. I don't know if anybody knows him, but for me, one of
Of
the
course.
most outstanding heavy hitter fighters ever. I love Emil Griffin, and of course, I just gave you a couple. Julio Cesar Chavez, no doubt. Salvador Sanchez, most people don't even remember him because, of course, he departed at a very young age. Um, who else? Oh, I have to put there Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is recognized by his punching power. A lot of people don't even recognize his boxing IQ. Outstanding boxer. That's how many there. I just gave you how many.
About
So
5. That's
those
good
would be my
enough.
top 5.
We got Manuel L in the 408 says, "Do you think Prime will be the home for PBC for many years to come, or would you like to see everyone under the same platform?"
Um, I'm hoping that PBC finds a home for a long time, be it under one umbrella or under Prime. I think Prime is a beautiful platform just because they already have the eyeballs um, into the system. I come, another one of my loves is the NBA. I played basketball. I was a point guard at five
Nice.
three.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm one of those. I'm one of those. Uh, I would love to see the sport itself a lot more organized, and obviously not for the sake of the sport itself, because the nature of the sport, I don't think it'll ever change, but for the benefit of the fighters. I'd like to think salaries. I'd like to think longevity. I'd like to think benefits. I'd like to think, health insurance, for God's sakes. Just like the NFL, just like the hockey league. I mean, in general, leagues bring that structure that I would like to see serving our fighters that are so underserved. And how many fighters do we know that after their heyday, they kind of not just disappear, they're forgotten by the fans, but they're obviously their means are meager. They have nothing to fall back on. So I'd like to see that type of support coming into a very beautiful sport that can be brutal. So do I see that happening anytime soon? It's going to face a lot of challenges because there's a lot of interests. So here's hoping for the best.
All
Okay.
right. I got Matt Garcia in Texas. Hello, Claudia. Matt from Texas here. In your time in boxing, which company has had the best show production in your opinion? Also, how hard is it to move from corner to corner for the interviews during the fight?
Do you guys remember when PBC started with the big screens and the pyros? It was amazing, amazing. And with that being said, one of the best shows I ever saw, just in general, like on site, Canelo in Guadalajara, when it, I don't know if you guys saw, it was like 100 and something mariachis, and they had LEDs all over the place, and the concert was amazing. So it wasn't the company itself, it was his promotional company that banked all that. Perhaps one of the best shows ever.
I got Bones 13 from Fort Worth, Texas. Other than being a boxing journalist, what other sports would you like to cover and why?
So I covered the NBA for 15 years. I'm in love with the NBA. It's a beautiful dance. I mean, I think they're outstanding talent, athletic, and they make it a beautiful ballet. Because when you see the intricacies, the footwork, the verticals, it's just amazing. And I think TV does justice, but not to the extent that you can see the physicality on the court. I miss it. I love the NBA. A shout out to all my NBA players and everybody that's in there. Diehard Lakers fan, diehard from back in the day. Uh, the era of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then Magic, and then so yeah, that would be my other. I love NFL. NFL is one of those games that actually is better watched on TV. They've done a great job at just formatting it. So I need to have my little chela, my little botanita, and watch the game and relax. And it is very difficult to go from one corner to the next, especially when you're wearing heels. But I pull it off because I can.
I got Vinny from the Bronx. Claudia, I love the hairstyle. What are some struggles you've dealt with being a Hispanic woman in boxing industry, and what advice would you give What advice would you give to you, a woman trying to get it? I guess he meant to a woman trying to get into business. That was a typo. So what advice would you give to a woman trying to get into the business, and what are some of the struggles you dealt with being Hispanic in the business?
Well, being a Hispanic female in the business, that's the first challenge from the get go. And then the wonderful thing is there's always that kind-hearted, trusting person that sees something in you. Always, always. There's always going to be somebody. If you're really steadfast and you have the work ethic, there's always going to be somebody that's going to see, your talent and your work ethic. And I've been very blessed like that. I was blessed by people that perhaps had more trust in me than I did in myself. So to all those young ladies that are out there looking to do what I do or different, just, those challenges become bigger when you just look at the big picture. I suggest for you to go step by step, brick by brick, one challenge at a time. Don't try to just embrace it all and take care of it all, because I've done it and it was overwhelming. So you just go fight by fight. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. But at the end of the game, it's just a war. It's just that minute. At the end of the game, you will see your efforts. They will come back to you in so many different blessings. Maybe not the blessing that you're looking at then and there. So I suggest every time you do a gig or take on a chore, do it wholeheartedly. Don't look to the sides. Don't compare yourselves, because everybody has their own path. And I know it's a lot easier to say it now, but I remember back then I was all over the place. And how come this is happening and that's happening? And now the minute that I focused on me and what I do and my craft and honing my craft, and that was about 20 some odd years ago, that's when things started falling into place. So, but you're going to have to go through a struggle. There is no easy way. There is no easy way. Just be true to yourself.
I have three more if you don't have, actually there are four more if you don't have time.
Dale, dale.
You sure? You've
Dale.
been on an hour. Okay, we got Quan in Cleveland. Do you think defensive fighters should get credit for using the high guard, catching shots versus fighters that throw in low volume? Is high volume punching effective enough to win a round in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely. And yes, I do. I particularly, by the way, I've gone through the courses of judges and referees here in the state of Florida. So yes, we give credit to that active defense. But always, one of the first parameters is effective aggression. So whenever that punch falls on the arm, that is that effective aggression. Even though at the end it could cause issues, but that point in time, that punch per se is not creating damage. It's being blocked. So on that parameter, remember, we have three parameters by which we actually give points in the round. That being one of them. If you have the ability to punch, to block that punch, that is given that moment the point to that fighter. But volume will always be judged by how assertive that volume can be. I'm going to give you an example. Juan Manuel Marquez, Manny Pacquiao. We all know the volume that Manny Pacquiao used to use, and it could be overwhelming for anybody. So as a matter of fact, Juan Manuel Marquez in that last fight, in the fourth fight, was perhaps one of the worst fights he ever had against Pacquiao, and he was losing. He was being overwhelmed by not just the volume, but the assertion that Pacquiao was actually doing. But that one punch that Juan Manuel Marquez connected, that was the end of the fight. So that's a perfect visual of how I see fights. So there's that one punch that created so much damage, but there was volume that didn't do much. So you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Rod in LA, in your opinion, what fight is likely to happen next in the near future? Canelo versus Beterbiev or Canelo versus Benavidez?
Depends on the money.
Matt from Dallas, Texas, are you going to commentate at the Jake Paul fight in November 15th?
Nope, I'll be in Riyadh for Latino night. I'm
Juan,
gonna watch it though. We're gonna be watching.
Huang in Houston, what are your thoughts on the shakeup caused by Turki Al-Sheikh all across boxing promotions?
I think it's a great shakeup.
Excuse me, I read that wrong. He said, what do you think about Turki Al-Sheikh and all the cross promotion going on? Excuse me, meaning he's getting promoters to deal with each other.
I think it's fantastic. How long, Nestor? A ver, let's talk you and I here. Thank you for the question. For years, we've been saying we need the best to face the best. What the hell's going on? How come we're not? We were just talking about the Canelo Benavidez fight. We've been asking for this fight for how many years? 2 years? You know, and if somebody is going to come up and say, hey, what's the issue here? Is it money? I got money. So that problem is solved. So guess what? There is no excuse for the best not to face the best. I'm in nobody's pocket, so I really don't know how deep those pockets are. I assume they're big. So if that is, in fact, not the problem, we will see the best fighting the best.
So the last one, what do you think of these professional fighters that they're either current, active, or former that feel if you didn't get in the ring, you can't be a true analyst? And you have 30 years doing this, so I wanted to get your opinion. I mean, in the 30 years, you probably stepped in the ring. So I don't know if you felt like you needed to. But what's your thoughts on the angle that certain fighters have that if you haven't been in the ring, you really can't break it down?
God bless them. You know, they're allowed to have their opinion. I mean, what am I going to do? Yeah, and it's fair. It's fair because in their hearts, they're risking everything. They're the ones putting in the work and the sacrifice. So perhaps they feel like they're being there's disservice in a comment, or there's disservice on an analysis, because of course, think about it, and that usually comes from fighters that are coming off a loss, or they didn't have the best performance, and some analyst said, hey, you could have done better. And who likes to hear that their son is ugly or their child is ugly? That's not nice. They don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. But I've also had the opportunity to sit, mind you, I've had like face-to-face encounters like, wait, what? I've had those. And I say, listen, Linda, back off. 3 steps back. We'll talk when you're cold-minded. Because right now, I understand you're in the heat of things. I understand. God bless them. It's not nice. It doesn't feel right. I totally get it. But give me 2 days and we'll talk about it. And I'll tell you what I saw. And I could be wrong. It happens. I could have had a bad day at the office. But I know what I do. I do it objectively. I work on the neutral basis. I'm not going for anybody. That's why I don't like that question. So who you got? Who you're going for? I don't go for anybody. I just go for the sport. But I understand that fighters could take exception to being criticized. And is it fair for them to be criticized? In their hearts, no. But it's a job. It's my job. And it's many people's job. And I've worked with outstanding people that go through video, that go through other cards to see tendencies in judges. I do that. I see tendencies in judges because we're all human. And the sport is a subjective sport. It's what the judge sees, what the ref sees. And I kid you not, I have yet to see a commentator that walks into the comms table saying, I'm going to destroy Pepito Perez just because I don't like him, or because he's not wearing the right colors, or because he's of a certain nationality. Everybody that I've encountered in my very short experience in boxing has come to that table with the best intention to give people not only a good show, but a good analysis and insight.
Well, Claudia, those are all our questions. I want to thank you, obviously, for your time. I hope you enjoy your weekend out there in Orlando, and the fights, prove to be exactly what boxing needs. Give out your social media for anybody that isn't following you can do so. And once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nestor, for having me. It's always a pleasure. You can find me on pretty much every single platform, and it's basic, Claudia Trejos. So join us. We're going to be on PBC on Prime. And Nestor, I am so glad we had a chance to talk. I hope to talk to you again soon.
No, anytime. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Claudia Trejos. Join her on Amazon Prime for the big fight. We're going to get back into our regularly scheduled